The city lights blurred as Lynn walked, each step a heavy beat against the pavement. A workday had been long, a monotonous blur of screens and deadlines that left her feeling hollow. She clutched her bag tighter, the worn leather a small comfort against the evening chill. Her mind was a tangled mess of thoughts, mostly revolving around Min, his gentle smile, and the quiet comfort he brought into her life. The world seemed to fade into a soft focus, just the sound of her own footsteps and the distant hum of traffic. Suddenly, a voice cut through the noise, a voice she hadn't heard in years but knew instantly. Lynn, her heart stopped. Time seemed to warp, stretching and compressing all at once. It couldn't be. She squeezed her eyes shut for a second, then slowly, reluctantly, turned around. And there he was. He stood under the glow of a street lamp, looking almost the same, yet entirely different. The years had sharpened his features, but his eyes held the same familiar uncertainty she remembered all too well. A wave of shock washed over her, so potent it felt like a physical blow. Earth caught in her throat. She could only stare, speechless, as a million forgotten moments rushed back to the forefront of her mind. For his part, looked just as stunned, his hands shoved awkwardly into his pockets. He shifted his weight, a nervous tic she recalled from their past. "It really is you," he said, his voice a low murmur, almost swallowed by the city's symphony. I wasn't sure." The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words and unresolved history. What could she say? What was there to say after all this time? We finally broke the tension, his gaze dropping to the ground. "Lynn, I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air, simple words carrying the weight of years of pain. Lynn remained silent, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and anger. Sorry, was that all he had to say after shattering her world and disappearing without a trace? Her silence was a wall, and he seemed to feel it. Can we talk?" he asked, his voice laced with a desperation that pricked at her old wounds. "Please, just once. There's so much I need to explain." Lynn felt a war raging within her. One part of her screamed to turn around and walk away, to leave the past where it belonged. But another, smaller part, a foolishly curious part, wanted to know. It wanted answers. It needed closure. After a long, agonizing pause, a single word escaped her lips, barely a whisper. That same evening, Min stood at their usual meeting spot, a quiet corner in a park they had claimed as their own. He checked his watch, a small smile playing on his lips as he anticipated her arrival. He imagined her bright laugh, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. He waited. The minutes ticked by, turning into a quarter of an hour, then half. The smile on his face slowly faded, replaced by a flicker of concern. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over her contact. No new messages, no missed calls. This wasn't like her. A knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He waited a little longer, scanning the street, hoping to see her familiar figure rushing towards him, a breathless apology on her lips. But the street remained empty. Finally, with a heavy heart and a mind filled with questions, he turned and walked away, the silence of the empty park echoing his own quiet disappointment. Meanwhile, Lynn sat across from Wee in a dimly lit cafe. The air was thick with nostalgia. He talked, and as he did, fragments of their shared past floated to the surface late-night conversations. Inside jokes, the ghost of a younger, more naive love. But as she listened, she felt a strange sense of detachment, as if watching a movie about someone else's life. The girl who had loved this man was gone, replaced by a woman who had learned to live and love without him. We seemed to sense the chasm between them. He stopped talking, his eyes searching hers for a sign of the old connection. "Lynn," he began, his voice soft. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. The touch was like an electric shock. Instinctively she pulled her hand away, the movement sharp and decisive. The rejection was clear, and a flicker of hurt crossed Wee's face. From across the street, hidden in the shadows, another pair of eyes watched the scene unfold. Min had been on his way home when he saw her. He saw Lynn, sitting with another man. He saw the man reach for her hand. He didn't see her pull away. All he saw was the intimate setting, the earnest look on the man's face, and what he perceived as a shared moment. A cold, hard knot formed in his chest. His expression, once soft with worry, hardened into a mask of stone. 1,000 painful scenarios played out in his mind, each one twisting the knife of betrayal deeper. Without a second thought, he turned on his heel and walked away, his shoulders rigid with a pain he couldn't yet name. Just as he turned, Lynn's gaze drifted to the window. Her heart leaped into her throat. Min, he was here. He had seen them. Panic seized her. Min, she cried out, her voice muffled by the glass. She scrambled up from her chair, ignoring Wee's confused questions. She burst out of the cafe and onto the street. Min, wait, he didn't turn around, he didn't slow down. It was as if he hadn't heard her at all. His name was lost in the cacophony of the city. Lynn ran, her heels clicking desperately on the pavement, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She pushed through the evening crowds, her eyes fixed on his retreating back. Min, please. But he was too far ahead, moving with a purpose she couldn't match. He rounded a corner and was gone, swallowed by the anonymous throng of people. Lynn stopped, her chase ending abruptly. She stood frozen in the middle of the sidewalk, the world spinning around her. People brushed past, oblivious to the silent implosion of her world. Then, as if the sky itself was mourning with her, a single drop of rain landed on her cheek. Then another and another. A cold drizzle began to fall, turning the city lights into shimmering, distorted halos. From the doorway of the cafe, we watched her, a silent, helpless observer to the wreckage he had helped create. Lynn didn't even notice him. She turned and began the long walk home, her steps slow and unsteady. The rain grew heavier, plastering her hair to her face and soaking through her clothes, but she didn't feel the cold. All she could feel was the icy grip of despair. Tears streamed down her face, hot against her cold skin, mixing with the relentless rain until they were indistinguishable. Miles away, Min sat alone in his dark apartment, staring at a blank wall. The image of Lynn with another man was seared into his mind, a brand of betrayal. He didn't cry, he just sat there, hollowed out, as his heart quietly fractured. In two separate parts of the city, under the same weeping sky, two hearts broke in silence, a tragedy of misunderstandings and unfortunate timing. The rain continued to fall, washing over the city, but it couldn't wash away the pain. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more stories.